Good morning or good Saturday if you're Suzy, because he's still in another time zone. It is Liverpool FC versus Manchester City FC. The big one, as they say. We have the battle of the bald-headed coaches, as Suzy has. And we have an injury crisis almost, we could call, as we discussed before we went on air. We're joined by Gally and Suzy. Gally, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, my friend?
Not too bad. I actually managed to wake up with the alarm clock today, so that's always a good start. Suzy, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Mac. And Gally, how you guys doing?
Hanging in there, man. I got up at 3:30 this morning, as anyone who was on Discord might have saw, as I started making comments and then realized, wait, this is going to make people realize I'm either really up late from last night or woke up and was like so nervous and excited that the next thing I knew, I did fall back asleep a couple times, but yeah, it was something else. And just looking up at the big screen over here, it looks like Chelsea's just made it 3-0 with yet another worldie by Cole Palmer.
He should have signed for us when he had the chance, which he probably
would have been so good.
Fantastic. It would have been fantastic. But let's get straight into it. I'm terminally unimpressed with how they put the lineups out numerically. So we're going to go straight to it's not the formation I think we're going to play, but it's close enough. Kelleher in goal, obviously, for Liverpool. Trent right back, but Gomez at centre back for Kanate, who's out till January now. Robertson at right back. We're asking a lot of him now for the next few weeks. The midfield is probably, I think, almost certainly Gravenberch and McAllister as the double pivot, and Szoboszlai as the runner, and then Salah, Gakpo, and Diaz. I don't think Gakpo will be the central player. That seems like a Diaz central, Gakpo left situation, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would expect to see Diaz in the middle. We've seen that a few times this year, right? Already and recently, and we've seen it to a plum. It's worked well. I will say I'm a little disappointed because there was a part of me that wanted to watch Luis Diaz just run at Kyle Walker all game long, because I feel like Kyle Walker kind of like toyed with players like Luis Diaz in his prime with his speed, because he could make up for anything and almost undo their box of tricks right in front of him. With his one trick, which was speed. And it's amazing how average a footballer you become when the one thing you do goes away.
We like to call that phenomenon Michael Owen, I think, at Liverpool. Suzy, let's go back to the start, though. Kelleher he's been playing out the skin for weeks, so I don't think we've any concerns about him. But Joe Gomez at centre-back against Manchester City, where Erling Haaland running around that particular area. Do you have any concerns, or is the thing for Joe Gomez that he's always just Mr. Dependable and never really Mr. Top class, world class professional? But he's certainly somebody you can put him in there and you go, he's going to do a job.
Yeah, I think given the options between Gomez and Konsa, he was a better option. He was more experienced and more level-headed. I think Konsa, obviously the last game that he played, them 2 mistakes, we don't know whether he's mentally recovered from them or whatever, but it didn't cost us. But when Joe Gomez came on against Brighton, he was, it was like a man possessed. And I think now, knowing that Kanate is out until January, this is Gomez's time to step up and grasp it with 2 hands. And I'm so glad he refused to leave. I think, maybe it's a foresight of thinking that, Kanate will get injured and he might get his chance. And, who better to play with than Van Dijk? They've already had that experience. That back four, pretty much won the league for us when, Joe Gomez was like on peak form. So I have no issues there. I think he had a point to prove to everyone, or he might feel like he's got a point to prove to Slot, and this is the best game to come in for him.
Gally, if you're Joe Gomez, do you come into this game thinking, I can have a world-beating game here, single-handedly win us the league, score my first goal, and to capitalize on everything and cement everything at the end? I could do all that, but as soon as Kanate comes back in fit, he's starting. Do you think the players think that in Joe Gomez's position? And if so, how does that affect what their performance level might be? If as opposed to if he thinks, if I do well here, Konaté's not getting back in.
I hope he doesn't think that way, regardless of whether or not that's the truth to the matter. I hope he doesn't think that way, because that's pretty weak mentality for a professional athlete or a professional of any kind, to be honest. Like, if you think I can't do better and improve and get better, take someone else's job, move forward in life, like, I think, isn't that the old adage, when you stop learning or stop trying, you start dying? Like, that's pretty much like when it ends for you. So to me, I think Gomez every day probably showed up for training thinking, if I get a shot, there's a chance I can win the job. To Cersei's point, he might have thought about leaving purely because he wasn't sure if he was going to get a shot. Now, let's not hide anything. He was clearly fourth choice at the end of the preseason, and they were looking at other center back options, and they still had Sepp here at one point. So there was a period where it did look bleak, and I think I'm so happy he stayed. I said it earlier, I don't want to jinx anything, but I will acknowledge that we got to go 2 months or a month and a half with 9 fixtures without 2 key players in Bradley and Konaté. And really right now, our only cover at the back with Tsimikas out is Kwanzaa and Joe Gomez filling in the spot at fullback that the other one needs a rest in. That makes me a little nervous. And I almost think now, like, they've got to think about getting some defensive reinforcements in here for the second half of the season, because I don't think there's a kid ready at the academy level. So, but today, luckily, to Matusha's point, we have our title-winning defense. And, as long as Trent can give us 90 minutes, then, I think that's a win all the way around.
Before I get to Jose, a good morning to everybody who's commenting, and keep those comments coming. Susie, in the midfield, I mean, I don't think we could ask for any more than that, really. Curtis Jones could potentially be, argue that he should have a spot there. But for this particular game, the running of Szoboszlai could become incredibly important, couldn't it?
Yeah, I think that midfield picked itself for today, especially Jones playing midweek. For the sake of boosting Anand's big head, like Szoboszlai would have been the one that I would have picked definitely for this game. And I was a Gravenberch and McAllister. They're the stalwarts for that midfield. So I haven't seen the City team, but even still, just Szoboszlai with the pressing and all the off the ball work that he does, which I never gave credit for until he went until we didn't play him. It's I think that's the best midfield we can go for, and probably the best midfield in the Premier League right now.
Timely segue there for us, Suzy. Let us look at the City team. Ortega in goal, Akanji and Diaz central defenders. We talked before we went on air, myself and Gali, about Kyle Walker. We suspect obviously Diaz being there, and then in the centre, and Gakpo on the left. But Gakpo's not slow, really, is he? Kyle Walker might be in for a difficult time regardless, Gali, do you think?
Oh, I definitely think he is. I mean, to be honest, Kyle Walker's getting torched by, no offense to Feyenoord, he's getting torched by second-tier fullbacks in the Dutch league midweek in the Champions League. I mean, Kyle Walker looked done. And you know what? I made this comment yesterday. I really do believe there's 3 players specifically in this side, Kyle Walker, Ilkay Gundogan, and Bernardo Silva, that I believe all want it to, like, literally Ilkay Gundogan left once, but all 3 of them want it to leave this club over the last couple of years, because I think they've been tired of the process and tired of it all, and they haven't been allowed to leave. And, Ederson was the 4th player. And I think it's just starting to have its small little effects as this team gets older. And I think, to your point, I wanted Jones in this match, to be honest, because I wanted him rewarded for his performance against Madrid. And I thought Szoboszlai with fresh legs might destroy this midfield. I actually see it differently now. Slot got it 100% right, because he's going for the jugular in the first 30 minutes of this match. And Szoboszlai's running against these old legs. I mean, if you think Modric looks slow and a statue midweek, wait till you see Ilkay Gundogan, or the shell of a human that is Ilkay Gundogan, because it's not the same Premier League winner, that's for sure.
So Zay, on Galley's point there, in terms of, players getting a little bit tired mentally, probably more than physically, of the constant chase for perfection, the constant grind of having to be physically ready at 100% for every single game. And we know Pep Guardiola is obsessive about that, and we know he's obsessive about pressing. We saw some of those effects, I think, last year under Klopp, and certainly under Milner and Henderson's last years, where you could just see at a point in the season they just couldn't do it anymore. They just couldn't give it. They wanted to, but the message is it's just so overpowering and overwhelming that at some point you just give up. I like to tell a story about Inter Milan in 67 against Celtic in the final of the European Cup. Heleno Herrera was one of those obsessive managers, and the Inter Milan players said years later in interviews that one of the reasons Celtic won was because they just gave up. They were just so tired of being kept in hotels for weeks before games by the manager that for as much success as they had, they just couldn't take it anymore. Now, City players aren't going to down tools mid-game. We hope they do, but they won't. But at some point for these older players, the Pep Guardiola message just starts to get a little bit tuned out, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's the problem we had with Klopp. I think the reason why we did as well as we did last season with Klopp was because we had four brand new midfielders. So the message wasn't stale on them, but the message on obviously, Salah, Virgil, Trent, the message might have been going stale. And I know it's hindsight and the fact that we're doing well with Slot, we can kind of have that luxury to say that about Klopp, definitely in my time, other than, was it Bob Paisley and Dalglish the first time, Klopp's the best manager, we've had. And I didn't think we'll recover from leaving, but obviously Slot has shown that we can. And I think with Pep, he demands a lot, and I don't know why they never replaced these aging players, but it just seems like it's a pattern. That's what Dalglish did the first time he managed us. We never replaced the older players. Ferguson did the same before he left, never replaced our aging players, and now Pep's doing the same. And maybe that's because of FFP and they couldn't spend as much as they wanted to. But this is definitely like the weakest Man City team or weakest period of Man City that we've seen since Pep took over. And just going back to the point of Kyle Walker and Diaz, I think somewhere along that, maybe in the second half, I think Gakpo comes off and Nunes comes on, and he'll put Diaz on the left and just like tire Walker out even more. And I think that's a strategy we'll end up going with in the second half.
Before I go to Gally, Suzie, do you think if that is the plan, we as Liverpool fans could potentially be looking forward to a second half Kyle Walker inflicted penalty on Manchester City?
I think he might even get set off, or I don't know. Yeah, I don't think there'll be a penalty game. I don't think the referees have got the balls to give a penalty to Liverpool in this game. So, no, I don't see that happening.
Or any game for that matter.
Or any game, yeah.
Gally, now we talk about all of these positive things for Liverpool, but let me ask you, that front four for Manchester City, it still deserves to be respected, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, maybe, would you fear it a little bit more if maybe there was a fit Jack Grealish instead of Matthias Nunez, or even a Doku, or you fit Kevin De Bruyne in the Foden hole and you shift Foden out to one of the put him on the left. I think Matthias Nunez offers them a little bit of power and a little bit of speed that they don't have, and they need those legs, and that's why he's playing. Let's not kid ourselves. He's a indication and a representation of the problems at City, and it's not a problem because he's a good footballer. He's just not an elite footballer that deserves to be even a reserve player in a club of this size or a team with this aspirations. And I think it's the same thing I see when you talk about Akanji and Rico Lewis. And I've said this before. I said it yesterday. I think I said it Monday night on the pod. I'm not overconfident in this match, but this is the type of match that you have a wounded animal. You have a City side that's there for the taking. You're playing at the top of your game. I really believe you have to go for this. And this is, we've said all along, when will this team make a statement? And they have made statements. Aston Villa win, Real Madrid win. The win against Leverkusen is as good as they've played all year long. Today is the day where I think you can put in a defining moment for Slot and for this side to become their own side. And you know, you go 11 points clear of City here and 9 points clear of Arsenal with the fixtures they have coming up. They have a chance to do some really special things, and I think it starts today. So it's just a little pressure, I guess, on them.
Susie, on that point, we as Liverpool fans, I don't think there, apart from the internet nut jobs, I don't think there's any Liverpool fans that are not happy with the job Slot is doing. But for the outsiders, let's say, there is a lot of, well, as fixture. The first off, it was, the first 6 games were easy. Anybody should be winning those, and then it was, you know, it's the new Champions League format. Anybody can beat Leverkusen like that. That's going to be happening all the time as everybody figures it out. Then it's, you know, Villa they're not coping with the Champions League very well. You know, it's Real Madrid are in a shambles. Like, what does Slot have to do apart from maybe decimating City today to get that respect that his efforts have deserved this season? Because he has been textbook fantastic.
I think even if we win like 10-0 today, we won't get the credit from outside noise. And I really don't care. I mean, because they're going to say, well, Rodri's injured and it's an aging team and so forth and so forth. So I think Slot just shuts off that noise. We can only beat the teams that are in front of us. So if we, you know, just shut that noise off, and it's not our problem. You know, teams being injured or out of form, that's not our problem. All we have to do is just play the team in front of us. We've gone through an injury crisis. We've got a crisis now. We have no more defenders left. You know, bearing in mind that we played with our second keeper for most of the season now. Trent was injured. I can't remember who else is injured. You know, we've had our injuries. Robertson's out of form. You know, Tsimikas is injured. Like, we have our own injuries, and we're still doing a job. And I don't think Slot's going to pay any attention to outside noise in regards to that. And I don't think as fans we should either. You know, that's what happens when you're on top. People are going to look to knock you down in whichever way they can. And you know, when we had an injury crisis after the season, we won the league, and you know, no one felt sorry for us. And it's like, well, injuries happen and whatever. So it is what it is. It's not our problem. We just got to play our own game and just concentrate on ourselves.
Just a big hello to Kevin Benson. We had a good amount of banter with him yesterday during the watch along, which everybody should be keeping an eye out on when we do them, because they're quite an amount of fun, especially when I listen to the alarm clock and actually get up for it. But Gally, and also Betty Scoggins, thank you for the Facebook like. Love that name. It's my favorite name in the ASTV universe. But let's look at the benches, Gally. Grealish, as you talked about, Grealish and De Bruyne and Doku are actually on the bench. Is this a case of Pep's mind gamesing and telling us that players are injured and then they're actually not? Or do you think this is a desperation thing where he knows they're only half fit, but he needs them regardless because he doesn't know which way this game is going to go?
Yeah, I think this is a couple things. One, I don't think Kevin De Bruyne has started. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Kevin De Bruyne has started a match since coming back from injury. I don't think Pep trusts him right now. I saw the comment come up by Ryan. Ederson dropping. This isn't injury related. This is straight up like trying to gamble. It is on form because he's played poorly, but he's been poor for the better part of 8 to 10 months. He was poor at the end of last season. Ortega, I think Ortega started a match in the run-in to the title last year because he had like 2 huge mistakes and they ended up dropping points and Arsenal got even closer. So this was coming. Another player who wanted to leave. The Gvardiol one has had major mistakes in both the Champions League and last week in the Premier League. And I don't know if you realize this, he didn't start either of last year's matches against Liverpool either, Josko Gvardiol, their record signing. So maybe there's just something in the way Salah attacks left-sided defenders who go forward that he doesn't want to create that space. I think he came to park Jose Mourinho's bus in the middle of Anfield. This lineup, to me, says, I'm playing for a 0-0, and late on, Kevin De Bruyne will find Erling Haaland's big, fat, ugly forehead, and we'll try to win this thing 1-0. This screams, I'll take a 0-0 draw if you give it to me right now.
Yeah.
So see, looking at our bench, really, when you look at it, it's Kwanzaa, Endo, Jones, Elliott, and Nunes as the game changers. Not that I have anything against Jaros, but I hope we don't have to see him given the form Kelleher's in, because that means something really bad has happened. But is that enough, do you think, to change the game? I wouldn't put Tyler Morton in on a tight game with a 1-0, a 1-0 advantage, trying to see a game out, because I don't think it'd be fair on the kid. But Slot knows way more than I do, so he probably sees something in him if he did that and go, okay, I can trust him. But on paper, we have enough, don't we, to cover the subs that we may need at least. Barring some catastrophic back four all collapsing with the same hamstring injury.
Yeah. No, we should have. Yeah, barring the defense, we should have. I mean, Jones is shown he's a game changer. Elliott too, and obviously Nunes. So I think, I think overall on paper we do have the better team and better squad. And if we were going to play City, this is the best time to play City. And like Gally was saying, like, I think Pep will take a 0-0. To be honest with you, I would have taken a draw as well. It's just my nerves can't handle this. It's just seems too good to be true that City are at this point. And bearing in mind that we could have had much more success without Pep being there, and now we've finally got them, pretty much with our foot to their throats, and we just have to finish them off. And it's just like, it just seems too good to be true. And I just hope we don't get any injuries as well. It's December. We could win this like 5-0 and then lose a defender and pretty much finish our season. I think it's just too much riding in this game.
And a big hello to Spencer Stewart again. Good to see you again, as we always like to do. Like to see those repeat viewers. That's what we are all about. But Gally, years ago, and I'm talking about like, it was pre-2020. It was definitely during the Klopp era. Somebody put a GIF, whatever you call it, on like Twitter, when it was called Twitter and when it was good. And it basically showed like the Premier League table up to that point, but instead of the points totals, it showed the points differentials. So it moved from week to week, so you could see the gap between the top and the middle and the bottom and so forth, and how the table was packed. I thought that was a much better visualization of where your advantages are in the table or your disadvantages if you're down near the bottom. So with that said, looking at the league table as it stood before we went on air, we are potentially 9 points ahead of Arsenal, but even 6 points is a good cushion, and 8 points, potentially 11 over City. The pressure really is on City in this sense, isn't it? We can afford a slip up, not too many, but if we do get a slip up, this is probably the game to do it in, isn't it?
I mean, I guess it is. I just feel like if you were to lose this match, right, you basically bring City to 26 points. So now City's 5 behind, and Arsenal and Chelsea are 6 behind. 5 and 6 points isn't something that would have me saying, like, on December 1st, the season was over, or feeling like the next match was a must win for me. So to me, I just think you're giving them too much confidence. Like, I really feel like in this instance, I think the pressure is on City because they know if they want to win the title, they, by all accounts, need a victory today. And that's a big ask at a place they haven't historically fared very well at, especially under Pep Guardiola. I think there's an awful lot of pressure on Slot and his side because, I don't think coming off Arsenal dismantling of West Ham and dismantling of Sporting, you want to let them feel 6 points back and think that, you have a slip up or two. The thing is, Arsenal is going to lose matches as well between now and the end of the season. I just think that it's a big difference mentally being 8, 9, and 11 points ahead of someone than 5 and 6 points this early.
So in terms of the, my point is, is that if we lose to like one of the bottom teams, like to a Wolves or something like that, that's more psychologically damaging than if you lose a 1-0 game to City this like first half of the season. But on the flip side of it, a win today really should send shudders down the spine of every other top 4 title challenger, shouldn't it?
It should. But then everyone's got all the other teams have got their excuse as well. You know, we have an injury crisis, like Arsenal's supposed injury crisis, where they've only got 2 players injured. They'll just use that as an excuse. But yeah, they're definitely being 11 points clear. You know, league will be in our hands, and it'll be in our hands to, you know. I'll forego the FA Cup and League Cup just to win that. You know, just to stay where we are, and you know, take this league by storm. And that's obviously given our injury the potential injury crisis to our defense. As to City know they can buy themselves out of trouble in January, but you know, we know historically we won't, and that's good. That's the problem, and that could be a potential problem come January, where Arsenal may strengthen and, you know, City may strengthen, and we know we're not going to strengthen. We just historically do not buy players in January when we need to. So that's the only potential like pitfall I see coming up. But yeah, I would rather lose to a bottom team than say City or Arsenal, because that's a 6-point a game there. And you know, we lost to Forest, you know, and you know, it was a punch in the nose for us, but you know, we turned it around, and we show we can turn it around. But giving City or Arsenal or even Chelsea that advantage, I'd rather take a draw than lose to them.
Now, talking about mid-season transfers, let's bring in the boss. And just like, or unlike rather, Darwin Núñez, the boss never misses a post.
Oh, that's good.
See how I got that win. See how I got that win. Nugent, how are you? How are you feeling about this game?
I am nervous as fuck.
So how are you feeling other than every other week when we play?
I'm more nervous as fuck. I don't know, man. Like, basically because of the reasons, like I come on and I see that and I'm like, this is not going to help my nerves. And then you listen to Cersei, it definitely doesn't help the nerves. But no, because it feels, I don't know why, man, it feels like a little season defining. I know it's an exaggeration, but I feel like you win this and, man, like, you really can cruise. You lose this, you bring everybody back in, and with the tough 2 games coming up right afterwards, this could be that mini slump in the middle of the season kind of thing. I guess that's my biggest worry more than anything else. So even a draw, I think I would be okay with. A win would be huge. That's basically why I'm nervous. It feels like there's a lot hanging on the balance, which really is not actually, but it is. You know what I mean?
Do you think, because we always, as paranoid Liverpool fans around Manchester City, we always talk about that run that they always go on. Do you think a win for City today would be the impetus for them making one of those mid-season, like 7-game win type things they've always seemed a habit of doing?
They have the potential. I think we were talking about this yesterday with in the watch along. We were kind of talking all about it a little bit. They have the potential in some ways because they have players that have been there and done that, but it's a lot older version of these players, and they still won't have Rodri, and they still have their defensive issues. Those don't get fixed overnight. So I don't think it's the City of old where they can win like 19 in a row and crap like that. But they can go on a run. I think this, you know, once they get if they get their mojo back, I can see them stringing a bunch of wins together. Can they do it for that long like, you know, they used to? I don't think so. Now with Champions League and older players and no Rodri. But going back to Cersei saying, if they somehow address and fix a couple of their problems in January, you never know. But if we win this, I don't see them doing the 19 games in a row to be able to come back from like an 11-point deficit.
Before we start wrapping, yeah, go ahead, guys.
I was just going to say, if we win this, I think they would finish the day in 6th place, 5th or 6th place, and a point ahead of Spurs. Like they're right in it, and they will have to, with their weakened squad, they might have to think about like prioritizing Champions League because they're not even guaranteed in the top 8 of Champions League at this point. So like they still have work to do in the Champions League to not play 2 extra fixtures. They can't afford to play in February. So, you know, they just don't seem to me to have the pieces. I think they will buy, but I'm telling you, there's a reason none of these big players have signed contract extensions. There's probably a reason why they couldn't get huge name players like Danny Olmo and people to take the cheese last summer when they had a whole bunch of money and nobody wanted to talk to them. I mean, until they're cleared of these charges, or at least the sanctions come down for these charges, players have to consider that before taking a bag of cash in January and then finding out, you know, you're playing at, you know, the race car and you're playing Wrexham in League One next year.
Yeah, but at least you get to meet Ryan Reynolds.
You could probably do that at the Etihad, though, or you could do that if you played for Liverpool. You know, and honestly, I don't really care about meeting Ryan Reynolds. I'd rather meet Blake, to be honest. If one of the two had to come for dinner,
I'm sure she doesn't care about meeting Ryan Reynolds either,
and she would rather meet Gally. I'm sure.
Hey, why not? You're a handsome fellow. Before we start wrapping up, I just want to make sure everybody knows that we cannot do these shows without people watching us, and we can't have you watch us unless you're liking and subscribing to all of the right things, all of the right social media. So smash the like button and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, X formerly known as Twitter, and Blue Sky and Mastodon now, I believe. So we're going up in the world. We are getting all modern and technological.
Timuchin learns about a new little icon, and Gally gets a new job to handle.
There you go. And not once do we ever think of investing any money into these things so that we become insanely wealthy afterwards. But before we go, let's go with some score predictions and your impact player. We'll start with you, Sir Z.
Oh God. 2-1, Diaz being our impact player, I think. 2-1 to us, obviously.
Gally, what do you think?
So I went with the special yesterday. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to go 3-1 Liverpool. Impact player. I think Gravenberch will be instrumental throughout the whole match, but I think it's come to the point now where he is instrumental in our success based on how we play. I'm actually going to go with Anand's boy. I think Soboslai's running tires down their entire midfield, and eventually it's a mistake from either Gundogan, Rico Lewis being in the wrong place, and maybe even Soboslai finds himself on the elusive score sheet.
I am going to stick with my Timuchin 3-1 special. I think Soboslai might be the player that makes it all come together just through sheer athleticism and running around those old legs of the Manchester City team and backline. But the boss man, you get the final say.
My special, baby. I'm rolling with it. Yeah, I kind of went with it yesterday, keeping the positive vibes. Like Kevin says, I think Diaz is the different. But you know what? Just to be different, I can see Gakpo giving Walker a different kind of problem, where his threat to cut in and take that shot and stuff like that, as opposed to just kind of like trying to run past him like mostly Diaz would. So it kind of gives him like a dual problem. So I'll go with Gakpo. It's an interesting call to do this in the first place, but I think it pays off.
All right, let's hope that all of these predictions come true, because it's going to be a miserable return to work tomorrow morning for everybody if they don't. But we will have a post-match after this, so make sure you stay tuned. We will either commiserate, celebrate, or be meh, like that, like the French, depending on the score. But actually, I think 66% of the outcomes favor us. I think a draw or a win helps us, so I think we're in good shape anyway. Let's just hope we don't lose. So make sure you're tuned in and make sure you're liking and subscribing so you can find out everything else that happens on American Scouser TV. But let's go get our coffees or our Diet Cokes or whatever it is we get and enjoy the game. Gally, thank you so much. Suzy, thank you so much. And Timuchin, the boss man, as always. It is time to peace out. Get in front of the fire and then watch Liverpool destroy my dad's favorite team. It'll be great. See you later.